Alright, so welcome to another monthly recap. It is for December 2020, which means that today is going to be my final video of the year. It's been an interesting year for my YouTube channel. I've been doing pretty well. I've kind of been figuring out what I want to be as a content creator, and it's definitely been very creative, especially with the pandemic and the lockdowns and everything. I've had more time to think creatively and to think about what I want to do with this YouTube channel, and also, of course, what I want to do outside of YouTube with my life, and I'm still trying to figure that one out. But the YouTube channel is going pretty good. I currently sit at 3,850 subscribers. I actually gained about 800 subs over the past year, which is pretty good. I remember for 2 years my channel was just in purgatory. I kept floating around 3,000 subs. I wasn't really growing that much. I was just getting around 3,000, then I fell below 3,000. I was like at 2,900, and then I went back to 3,000, and it was a struggle the past 2 years on YouTube from around 2018, 2019. I really didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do with my YouTube channel, but I think I'm in a good place right now creatively. I really think I am. And the way I go about YouTube is that I try everything I can to not be like everybody else. I don't even think there are too many channels out there that do what I do right now, creating an hour-long podcast, roughly, every month, where I read the comments of my fans. And not even just my fans. You're going to see comments later on that are actually not that friendly. But I like to do it because I think it sets my channel apart, and it's a really good interactive thing for the people that watch my channel. It actually gives people a reason to be invested in the content that I produce. And last month was the first month since January that I have not done a recap at all. But if you guys have been keeping up with my social media and my community posts, you guys know exactly why I had to take a little break from YouTube. Because I have some family shit going on. I have a family member with cancer. Now it's kidney failure, so it's even worse, and it's just, ugh. It's fucking terrible, I'll say that. But YouTube is definitely a good escape from all the shit going on around me in the real world. And I have a lot of fun when I make my videos, so I'm gonna keep doing YouTube, but if something comes up, if you guys don't see me for a few weeks, know that some shit is going down. I'm still alive, but something is going on in my family, and I had to take a break. So, that in case something like that comes up, I mean, I plan for the foreseeable future to post regular content. You know, maybe not like every single day or every 2 days, but I try to go for like twice a week. That's like my goal for my videos. I think that's a reasonable amount of content. That way I make a decent amount of videos and people don't get tired of me, and I have enough time to deal with the other shit going on. Plus, you guys know I run a second channel also, a Call of Duty channel. And you think like a COD channel is the most generic thing that anybody could do, especially creating a brand new one. It's a really crowded space, but I was able to achieve 1,000 subscribers within a 6-month time frame. I think that's pretty good. I think I'm growing really well on my second channel. And I think the reason why is because, yes, I created a Call of Duty channel, which is such a basic thing. Like, there's so many Call of Duty channels out there, but I like to do stuff that sets me apart from the rest. And that is pretty much me mainly playing older Call of Duty games and focusing on those games instead of the new ones, which seems like a risk because you're not playing the new one. If you're not playing Cold War, you're not gonna grow as a content creator. You're not gonna do very well. But I've seen the opposite. I think that's because I have my own little niche, and I have my own fan base of people who want to see that type of content that I make that you don't really see on other channels, where I mainly play Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops 1. Those are the main Call of Duty games that I play in 2021. So, yeah, I think it's good that I do what I can to set myself apart, and I try so hard, like, on this main channel, to not be a generic news account. Like, I just report every time there's a news story. I get on a camera and I say, oh, here's the news, and I just regurgitate the news article and say, like, spend 2 minutes talking about what I think about the article, but most of the video is just me rereading a news article that somebody else produced. I just don't see any, like, I don't have any fulfillment out of that. Like, when I make a video, I want to feel like I'm getting something out of it. Like, not just that the viewers are getting something out of my videos, but that I'm getting something out of it as well by getting my ideas out there. But when I just try to become like a news anchor on YouTube, first of all, it's just everyone's fucking doing it. So it's not even like anything that is really anything special. But the second part is, like, you're not really making any meaningful content. You're just saying, here's the news. And to me, that just feels like a waste of time. I like making videos that you can watch 1 year from now, 2 years from now, and they can still have some meaning to them. And that's obviously working because I noticed recently the top earning videos and the top viewed videos that I'm getting on my channel are not the recent ones that I've made. It's videos that I made like in early 2020, late 2019, just videos that are randomly popping up on people's recommendations, but they could still enjoy the video even though it's a year old or 2 years old. Even though, like, I look back at those videos and I'm like, wow, my content was shit. But then, like, 2 years ago, I looked back at my content before and I'm like, oh, my content was shit. Like, I think I'm improving over time. I'm getting better and better and better and better. Maybe a year from now, I'll be like, oh, the videos I make right now are fucking garbage. So I'm always trying to improve. I'm always trying to get better as a content creator, and it's a really fun thing. I really like being creative and challenging myself that way. But let's get into your comments. The main reason why you guys tune into these things in the first place, you want to see if your comment popped up on the screen. So let's get into that. So my first video of December, actually I uploaded this on November 30th, but I want to include it in December because I obviously wasn't going to make a November recap for one video, especially the last day of the month. So I'm going to count it for December, and it's a video where I talk about how I'm not really social when it comes to gaming. You know, like, everyone's always in a party, they're always talking to people, they have their mic on when they play online games. And the weird thing is, like, I love playing online games, but that's not because I want to actually interact with people socially online, especially random people. No, like, the reason why I play online games is because I like to challenge myself, and it's so boring if you try to play, like, Call of Duty against bots. No, like, you want to play the game online because it adds, like, a really interesting dynamic to the game. And that's the big reason why I'm really into online multiplayer. Not because I want to talk on the mic with people. No, like, I never turn my mic on, ever. The only thing, I have push to talk on PC. Maybe if I want to do a call out here and there on Valorant or whatever other, like, competitive game I play that you really need to have communication. But I don't want to, like, go out of my way talking to people and shit. Especially, like, like half the time I'm in a lobby, a public lobby in any game, I have to mute the fucking microphone because someone's spamming the mic, there's a baby crying in the background, there's some bullshit. Like, I don't want to be bothered with that shit. And I didn't actually mention this in the video, but I also have a lot of bad experiences because I have in the past done it where I squad up with random people, I make online friends over PSN, Xbox Live, but most of the time it doesn't end very well because you find out that your online friendship, that's really all it is. It's online and it's virtual. It doesn't have any real meaning. The only reason why you're friends is because you guys have a game in common. Maybe, like, you're good at the game, you're both good, and you can help each other out. And I noticed that. Like, I had a whole squad of players in GTA, but then, you know, we were hanging out for, like, 3 months, 4 months. Like, we were friends for a while, and then they betrayed me. They kicked me out of their group and replaced me with somebody else. So it could be that I also have trust issues, that I have negative experiences with random people. But, like, when I think of online gaming and voice chat, I just think of little kids screaming the N-word. Like, that's just the only thought that pops in my head, not, like, any meaningful social interaction. No. So, yeah, I'm a pretty anti-social gamer. I'm a lone wolf. But as I pointed out in the video, I'm not really anti-social outside. Like, in real life, I'm not the same way. Like, I don't go out of my way to avoid people and stay away from people. No, like, I like talking to people in real life. But when it comes to the internet, it's just bullshit. And I want to stay away from that. Like, I do have several internet friends that I consider to be really cool. Bullet Barry is the big one. Magnum Master, who may or may not be lurking right now, he's pretty cool. Even though we don't talk a lot, I still consider him to be a really cool guy. And I would consider those people to be real friends. Like, they're not fake friends. They're not virtual people. Like, no, I consider them to be good friends of mine. But for the most part, it's really difficult for me to open up to somebody and try to get close with someone over the internet. And that's especially true if you're just talking about gaming, because your friendship is so fake. Like, the friendship is based on the game. What if you don't want to play that game anymore? So many times where I've added people and I was cool with people, but then when I want to play something else, they, like, guilt me into playing the game with them. And then I'm not playing the game for myself anymore. I'm playing it for other people's enjoyment. And yeah, that's the reason why I don't really like online gaming with people, with parties and squads. I just like to do my own thing because there's a lot less stress. And I feel like I'm in a lot more control over my experience. Even if there are some benefits of playing with other people, maybe it's a little easier, especially if you're talking about a co-op game. But I don't know. I think I'm good the way I am right now. But let's see what you guys have to say. Sailor Mercury writes, I am mostly a single player and RPG gamer. I'm not very outgoing in real life, but I'll speak to people if they talk to me. But mostly, I don't mind being alone. It's a lot more freeing, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way. I don't know if you can, like, describe me as an introvert. I think I'm, like, somewhere in between. I don't go out of my way to make friends and talk to people because I have bad experiences where I try to be friends with someone just to say that I have friends. Like, when I first moved to my new area, upstate, New York, I didn't have anybody. I didn't know anyone. So I tried to make all these friends, and it didn't work out very well because I was just having friends just to say that I can have friends, and all those friendships ended up being shit because we had absolutely nothing in common. I had nothing in common with these people that I was hanging out with. I was just hanging out with them just so I could say that I'm going out and I'm socializing and I have friends and I'm not just a loser that sits at home all day and doesn't go out. Right, so I had that. That was my second half of college where I just had all these friends just so I can say that I have friends. But they were not real friends. No, they were not. So, yeah, I have a lot of negative experience with just making friends just to say I have friends. And that's what I feel like online gaming is, just having people to play with just so you have people to play with. It's a waste of time and it's not very productive to me. And then we got a comment from Finn. It's been hard for me to make friends online because my schedule is all over the place. I don't play during the day and at night I'm sometimes too tired to talk. The two games I play right now are Among Us and Phasmophobia. Both are awesome games to play with friends. I'm not a very social person, so single-player games will always be my favorite. I can't wait for Cyberpunk. Well, that last sentence didn't age very well, even though it was only 3 weeks ago. But, yeah, I'm definitely the same way. Like, when it comes to... Because I have friends. I have real friends that I've been friends with for so long. But, yeah, our schedules don't always work well together. Like, maybe, like, my closest friend, even though we play a lot of games, like, on our own time, the actual, like... when our schedules go together, it's so rare. So we only play together like once a week at most. So yeah, so I do have a lot of friends. It's not like I have no friends, but the reason why I don't use those friends to play online with is because yeah, we have so many different schedules and they don't always go well together. So yeah, that's the thing that sucks. And yeah, at nighttime, like they're like, oh, you want to hop in? Then it's like 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock. I'm just like, no. Like, at nighttime, I just want to shut my brain down and just enjoy myself. Like, I don't want to, like, talk to people and interact with people. Like, if it's, like, a close friend, don't get me wrong, like, I'll do it. But I'm certainly in no mood. If I'm playing a game of Valorant at 3 a.m. to try to socialize with people on a fucking microphone, like, that's just not going to happen. Because I'm just not in the mood. I'm not in the mood anyway, but especially at 3 o'clock in the fucking morning, I'm in no mood to talk to random people. Even if people get mad that you don't have a mic. Tough shit. And then Dr. Daniel316 says, as someone who has a group on Discord who hangs out, plays games, or makes videos with one another, as well as other friends, I do find it hard personally to play solo as it just doesn't feel as fun to me personally. I suppose it's because I spent years playing games alone as a kid due to not having a system of my own that was capable of online play, and my family didn't play games I love to play, so when I finally got my own PC, it really opened up the world to me in a way, and I forged many great friendships on Discord, been friends with 2 of my friends for 3 years now, which blows my mind, honestly. But yeah, while I usually do want to play games with friends, sometimes they'll play a game I don't care to play. The biggest one I can think of is Left 4 Dead 2. I loved it at first, but after so long, the game just felt stale to me. The bugs and crashes were also really annoying, and the workshop content was becoming quite shitty, so I was sick of playing and wanted to play the first game instead, as I find it to be a better quality game, but I couldn't because it doesn't have nearly as much mod support, so my friends didn't want to. So I literally forced myself to play a game I grew to hate, and now me and my friends are all burnt on it, but I'm burnt so bad on it that I honestly don't want to play it ever again. But as a whole, I generally prefer playing online with friends in most games, although something like Call of Duty I'll play on my own because I don't mind doing so for multiplayer, at least not zombies. So I can relate to a lot of stuff you've been talking about in your comment, especially the part where you're playing games for other people, you don't want to play a game, but your friends want to play it, and you have no choice but to play it, and you're kind of not playing for yourself anymore, you're playing games for other people, for other people's enjoyment. I just mentioned that a couple minutes ago, and I also mentioned that in the video itself, so yeah, I can definitely relate on that. And I guess it could be true that some games are better to play with other people, but the fact that my friends don't play the games I like to play a lot of times, or when they do, the schedules just don't work out, I just don't like going out and finding random people. It's just not something that I really like to do, is just try to game with random people and play games together. I don't know, it's just not something that really appeals to me that much. Some people, hey, you have great friends online, that's great that you're having... I'm not trying to say, like, online friends are always fake friends, and if you have internet friends, they're not real friends. No, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying from my experience, that turns out to be the case. So I just want to avoid it. I know as a YouTuber, I'm in a bit of a unique situation because if I said, hey, I need 3 people to play X game with me, who's down? I'm sure I'd find people because I have an audience, I have a following on YouTube and Twitter and everything. So if I really wanted to, it wouldn't even be that difficult for me to do it if I wanted to. Like, let's say I want people to play Battlefront 2 with, for example. Star Wars Battlefront 2. I want to squad up with people. I could probably easily find people, because I have a YouTube channel, that would want to play with me. But at the same time, like, I have plenty of fun playing it solo. Like, I don't need people to play with. I don't need it. It's not something that really means anything to me, having people, because playing with friends is awesome, but when it's just random people that you're trying to squad up with, it just kind of doesn't have that meaning anymore. I guess it's cool if I get to play with my subscribers, and I'll probably do that in the future. Like, if I do live streams, I'll probably do gameplay live streams with people, my subscribers, but I don't know. It's just not something that I guess I don't feel comfortable doing, although, like, I don't know. Like, I'm not, like I said earlier on, like, I'm not, like, an antisocial person in general. It's just when it comes to my games, I'd rather just be by myself because I'm in my own space. I play video games as a nice hobby for me, and I don't want to make it too complicated, you know what I mean? But moving on to my next video where I talk about buying games and never playing them. I'm sure we've all had this experience before where you don't really, like, have any intention on buying a specific game, but you see there's, like, a holiday sale going on Steam, and it's 50% off, 75% off, and you just can't help it, so you buy it. And you tell yourself you'll get around to playing it one day, but then one day turns into a week turns into a month turns into a year, and you just have a game sitting there on your backlog. And after all the holiday sales over the years, you end up having 15, 20 games that you've never played, even though you bought them. And it kind of makes you feel shitty. It makes you feel like you're just wasting your money on bullshit. But even though you feel really guilty about it, you just don't find the time, you can't find the time, or you just don't want to be bothered playing these games because you never really wanted to play them in the first place. You just saw that low number on sale, and you couldn't help it. You couldn't resist it. It was like an impulse buy. So in that video, I made a promise to myself, because this is getting ridiculous at this point. I keep buying these games on sale, and I never play them. It's crazy. So I told myself, I'm going to skip the autumn sale for Steam. I'm actually skipping the holiday sale as well. I'm not buying a single game on that sale until I knock out a good chunk of my backlog, because it's ridiculous. I have all these games that I bought that I never played once. I never even installed it. Just left it there in my library. But it seems like a lot of you can relate to my situation. Retro Den says you literally described me. Arscape bought Far Cry Primal when it was on sale, and it took months before he finally decided to play it. And Andy Journey bought Mass Effect 1 and 2 back in 2011 and still hasn't touched them. Even had to go back to his purchase history to look it up. And then there's this comment from Florian Daniel. You monster, you didn't save civilians. I didn't know. I was trying to save the civilians because he's talking about a mission in Deus Ex where you can go out and save the civilians. I don't even know where they were. I still don't know where they were. It was my first blind playthrough of Deus Ex Human Revolution, so I didn't know. I thought it was just part of the mission. Like, you could just do it. I didn't know that it was something that you had to, like, go out of the way and figure out where the civilians are. I thought it was just a part of the main mission. So, my bad. Sorry, civilians, you're all dead. And then I talked about how I miss the console wars, which sounds weird because you think console wars, you think toxic shit, fucking PlayStation fanboys, Xbox fanboys going after each other, arguing which piece of plastic's better than the other. It's kind of cringe, but I miss what the console wars used to represent, because back in the day, you had the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, which was before my time, but still, it's a good example, where you had two amazing consoles that had a fantastic library of games. Each console was amazing. It was definitely worth the money, but, like, the competition was fierce. So you had the console wars between Sega and Nintendo, but they were actually, like, fighting for something, right? And then go on to the PS3 and 360, where, again, same situation. You had two amazing consoles that both had fantastic exclusives, amazing game libraries, that you really couldn't go wrong with either console. But now the modern day console war is not talking about the games. They're not talking about which console has the better game library, because that's what a fucking game console's supposed to be. It's supposed to be which platform ultimately has the best games. But now it's about which console has the fastest SSD, which console has more teraflops in the GPU? I'm like, is this a console war, or are we talking about gaming PCs? What the fuck? Like, seriously, that's what a modern-day console war is about. It's not about the games, because there are no games, at least on the new consoles, yet. So you can argue, okay, maybe that's the reason why you have the console wars focused on that so much, because you have that, but you don't have a lot of games going on right now because it's early on in the 9th generation. Oh, so the fanboys are trying to find something to argue about. You could make that argument, but even like the 8th generation, you had the PlayStation fanboys and the Xbox fanboys going at each other, but it wasn't even close to being on an even playing field. It really wasn't. You had one console that had a wide variety of exclusives, or at least had a good amount of exclusives. As far as variety, that can be put into question because they were all third-person action games on the PlayStation. But at least you had exclusive games. The Xbox had nothing. Never mind the fact they put the games on PC. You can say that's not a big deal because if you're a console gamer, you're either going to get a PlayStation or Xbox. So you could still argue that Xbox exclusives are still exclusives because you can't get it on the PlayStation. Okay, let's say that that's true. Still, even the games that Microsoft published on that platform, Crackdown 3, State of Decay, Sea of Thieves, the fucking Master Chief Collection, that game was a mess for at least 3 to 4 years. They fixed it like 4 years later, but still has problems. Like that game was a fucking mess, MCC, but that was supposed to be the big PlayStation killer, the Master Chief Collection. Yeah, it didn't work out so well. And they just had all these fucking games that weren't worth shit. They were fucking garbage, or they were average at best. They weren't even, like, high-quality stuff. So, yeah, there was a console war last generation, but when you look at the games, when you look at the actual hardware sales, it wasn't even a close contest. It's like if Jake Paul actually steps in the ring with Conor McGregor. It ain't even gonna be close. But it's definitely an interesting question to ponder. What the hell happened to console gaming that we've reached a point where the only arguments that these console fanboys are going at against each other is which console has the most powerful hardware? And then I look back to the PS2 days where you had a console that was the least powerful in the market. PS2 was not as powerful as the GameCube, and especially the original Xbox. But guess what? Power doesn't mean shit because the PS2, here's a crazy fact for you guys. You can take the hardware sales of the Xbox and GameCube, combine it together, so that's about 25 million units for the Xbox and 20 million for the GameCube, that's 45 million. So you can take the total hardware sales for the Xbox and GameCube, combine it together, and the PS2 still sold more than the Xbox and GameCube combined times 3. The PS2 is the best-selling console of all time with 155 million units sold worldwide. Yet, it was the weakest console on the market. So I want to hear about power. Are you guys going to try to tell me that because a console is more powerful than the other, it's going to sell the most? You guys don't understand the gaming industry if you actually believe that. Are you guys going to tell me that the KFC fucking Kentucky Fried Chicken console is going to outsell the PlayStation 5 because it could do 4K 240 FPS? Of course not. But then why are these Xbox and PlayStation fanboys arguing so much about power and performance? The PS2 had the worst versions of almost every multi-platform game, yet it still sold a lot more, so I don't want to hear that shit. I really don't. So we got an interesting comment from Magnamaster. I think the problem is that after the 7th generation, the consoles had enough popularity to sell regardless of quality, so people just bought the next-gen systems, not even thinking about the games or challenging the console to make them want it. They don't have to fight over consumers anymore. People just buy things because it's popular, and there are so many misconceptions spread about PC that they think it'll be the most comfortable experience. I think the Series X sales speak for themselves here. There is no reason to own a Series X unless you are misinformed. If you wanted Microsoft games, you just get a PC because that has all the services and games the Series X will have, and actual tens of thousands more. And if you care about the few exclusives PlayStation has, you get a PlayStation. Sure, PlayStation is selling better, but if people actually cared about games anymore, PlayStation would sell poorly, and Xbox wouldn't sell at all. Yeah, definitely a good point that if people actually were informed, everyone would have a PC, because PC just offers so much more than a console ever could. And I think you're definitely right when you say that console gaming is kind of like so ingrained into video game culture that people don't even second guess it. They just buy the new console because that's what they've been doing for 10, 15, 20 years. You know what I mean? And I used to fall into that trap. I'm like, oh, I gotta get the PlayStation 4 because I had the PS3, and the PS4 is gonna be as great as the PS3. But it turns out the games, in my humble opinion, were not nearly on the same level as the PS3 games. So I learned my lesson. I'm like, I'm not even gonna buy. Never mind the pay it online, all that other shit. That definitely helps make my decision to switch to PC. But yeah, I think it definitely is a big thing where people just aren't informed. We see the same thing with mobile phones. How many people have iPhones, even though they're shitty phones and they're way overpriced? But it's like a status symbol. So I guess, ooh, I have the new PS5. That is a status symbol, I suppose. And the Series X, just you having a new fancy piece of hardware, I guess you want to impress people or something. But then, it's a trend. It keeps building up and building up. It's like a domino. One person buys the console, you're like, oh my god, my friend has it. I gotta get the console also. Even though we have cross-platforms, it doesn't really matter if you have the same console as he does. But still, it's like a trend, and people follow trends. And I think you're definitely spot on with your comment. I think you're definitely your assessment of consoles and the popularity of consoles is pretty on point. But it's a shame just how uninformed people are about PC gaming and the benefits that it has. There's just so much misconceptions about PC gaming being such a difficult thing. Like, dude, I'm fucking retarded. I'm a fucking idiot. And if I can get into PC gaming, literally anybody can. So I think that's the thing. There needs to be more information. People need to have a better understanding of what they're getting into with consoles, with the paid online, with games being more expensive, with everything that comes with a console that you just don't have to deal with on PC. And then GeoArva35. The truth is that Sony can do the bare minimum with the PlayStation and they still will get more sales than Xbox because Microsoft is not even trying. Yeah, I definitely agree with that because Microsoft, they're kind of focusing away from consoles and hardware. Like, they're still selling consoles, but they're focused more on services, Game Pass. They really don't care about how many units the console sells, but as a result, they're not really trying to compete with Sony as far as having the best console on the market. I mean, they say that they have the best console, they have the most powerful console, but they don't have any games to back it up. And, to be fair, as of right now, Sony doesn't really have the games to back it up with the PS5, but I imagine 2 years from now, there will be more compelling exclusives on PS5 than there will be on Xbox, even if you include PC games, like games that are also coming to PC. Still, I think Sony, they have a better first-party offering. Maybe that could change with Bethesda and, these acquisitions that Microsoft's been making, so maybe it'll pay off in a few years' time, but I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to play out. I still think it's going to be the same way. It's going to be Sony selling a lot more PlayStation 5s than Microsoft selling Xbox Series S's or Series X's. And that's what I said when I made my live stream a couple months ago, my full 9th gen predictions. I pretty much said that, yeah, it's going to be another one-sided affair. And that's what I miss about the console wars, is how competitive it was, how really, like, you had two amazing consoles that were neck and neck, and because of the fierce competition you had, we had a lot of good games as a result. So when it's just completely lopsided in one company's favor, like Sony, that results in shittier games and a less exciting time to be a gamer, because that's how I felt about the 8th gen. And you could say that the PS4 exclusives were great, but they were not even close to being on par with the PS3 games. And I think that's not a coincidence, because Sony didn't have any real competition last gen, and the quality of the games really show for it. So yeah, I really do miss the console wars. I miss just how competitive things were, and now I don't feel like the competition is there. I mean, the fact that all the Xbox fanboys are talking about is graphics. Dude, get a fucking PC if you care so much about graphics. You know what I mean? And I love this comment from Mad Max and Maddie. I never thought I would like you better than Rags. Boy, was I wrong. If you told me a few years ago that someone would write a comment like that and wouldn't be sarcastic and would actually be serious that they like my content better than Rags, I would think that you're full of shit, because I'm still not used to the idea of my videos getting more likes than dislikes. It's just, for so many years, the way it was is I would upload a YouTube video, no matter what the video was about, no matter the quality of the content, no matter what was going on, people just hated me so fucking much that I would get bombed with dislikes, and there wouldn't be a single positive comment at all. People who subscribe to my channel just subscribe to make fun of me and to hate on me. And, I'm not trying to play the victim. I definitely deserved most of the hate that I got. But I'm saying the fact that I was able to turn things around and people actually look forward to seeing my content in a positive way and not like to make fun of me. It's crazy. It's something that I'm still not used to, even though that's been the trend over the past 2 or 3 years. I mean, I still make the occasional video that gets some controversy and I get more dislikes than likes, but generally, people like me on the internet, and that's still something that I can't believe. And speaking of Rags, I would love to have a conversation with that guy, like on a live stream or anything, because I feel like that would make for a really interesting conversation considering the history that we have and that we've both changed a lot over the years. So I wonder how that dynamic would work. I think it would be really fascinating, and I think it would make for really good entertainment on YouTube. So we'll see. I don't know if it could ever happen because I think he still thinks that I'm like just some fucking console asshole and that I'm just like a little bitch. And he wants nothing to do with me. I also know that he's kind of like off the radar and he hasn't really been posting any content at all, so he probably just doesn't have the time anyway. But that would be a really cool thing if we were to make it happen. Me and Rags in a live stream together. It would be fucking epic. Then I made a video ranting on political correctness in video game culture and the gaming industry. It's getting to a point where it's ridiculous. Every little thing you say, this is not just a problem with video games, of course. This is like a greater issue where everything you say can be interpreted as offensive, where it's like ridiculous. Like there's not a single thing you could say that nobody can be offended by. And especially with video games, I have no tolerance for that shit. Because people look to video games as a form of escapism from the nonsense that we see in the real world, and part of that is PC culture. So when people say, oh no, you can't say this, you can't do that, you can't have a game that has this in it, and everything is offensive. You can't say blind playthrough because it's offensive to blind people. Like ridiculous shit like that. I just felt like venting and ranting for a little bit because that's what I wanted to do. And some people I know didn't appreciate that video. I think it's my least viewed video of the month because I guess, you know, it kind of is an overdone topic that people have talked about extensively in the past, but I just felt like hitting the record button and ranting about it a little bit. So I hope you guys enjoyed that rant. But looking at the comments I got, it doesn't seem like you guys did. You guys really didn't seem to enjoy that video very much. Let me see what your guys' comments are. So we got this comment from Just a Guy. Dude, the no color gameplay video is seriously bothering me. Never do this shit again. Nice video though. Then I respond, I'm like, the color turns on later. That's how the map works. I'm talking about Ascension in Black Ops 1. The way it starts is that it's black and white. That's the artistic direction they went with it. And it's black and white until you go and turn the power on. Then the color turns on. And then he responds, well, don't upload that map again. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, people just have stupid shit to complain about. Oh, you don't like black and white in the fucking gameplay. It's not like I put a black and white filter in the gameplay while I'm editing. It's just stupid shit that people like to complain about sometimes. That's kind of ridiculous. But not as ridiculous as this comment that we got from Weststyle. He wrote a whole essay arguing why political correctness is a very necessary thing in video games. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's just, like, it's going to take way too long. And honestly, I can't make much sense of what this guy is trying to say because he goes on a whole tirade about how the topic is so old, it's one-sided, and he just nitpicks every little thing I say in the video. I talk about cancel culture when I talk about political correctness. He says, getting canceled is such a rare occurrence, it never happens, and it usually only happens to racists or bigots. Yeah, no, that's what you label as a racist or bigot. Anyone who has a different opinion than you is a racist or bigot. And I guess that's an easy way to dismiss opposition because you label them, you brand them as a terrible person, as an awful person, that you can just dismiss them, you can cancel them, and you could say they're not worthy of being a part of society. There are a lot of times when they do deserve it, like if they are actually guilty of committing a serious crime. Like R. Kelly, for example. He's a good example of someone that definitely deserves to get canceled. But a lot of the people that I see getting canceled, it's because they all share similar political beliefs. They're conservative, they support Donald Trump. So, yeah, they get canceled and they're labeled in such a way that they're awful people, that they're evil for believing in something different than they do. And that's what getting canceled is. You can say that, oh, anyone who supports Donald Trump is a racist or a bigot. Well, guess what? The hatred that you have for people who think differently than you, I can guarantee you there are just as many people on the opposite side that feel the exact same way about you. So, like, it's like fighting fire with gasoline. It really doesn't accomplish anything, and it does not make the world a better place. It really doesn't. But he, like, dismisses it, saying it only happens to famous people, but it also happens to regular people too. Especially people that work in fields that are heavily biased towards one political ideology. So we can talk about teachers and professors getting fired or suspended for saying something offensive, especially college professors. It doesn't really happen to, like, school teachers, really, but college professors, a lot of them got canceled. That happened in my own school. So I've definitely seen it happen firsthand. And also, anyone who works in the tech sector, if you work for a big tech company like a Google or a Facebook, and you say openly that you support Donald Trump, compared to you saying openly that you support Joe Biden, you do not expect different results between those two people. You're delusional. You really are, if you believe that this is just something that doesn't happen. It's a complete myth. Nobody has to deal with this. It's bullshit. You're just not living in reality. Now, have we reached the point yet where every little thing you say will be monitored? Unless, like, a regular person that's not famous, that's really not true. I will give you that we don't really live in this, like, you know, China social credit system yet. But considering the fact that you are really in a lot more danger, you have to really watch out for the things that you say a lot more now than, let's say, 10 years ago. It's a problem that's getting progressively worse, where people are essentially persecuted for expressing their views. And you could say, oh, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences. You know, that's the common talking point that you hear from the PC police, that, well, yes, you can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't suffer the consequences if we don't like what you have to say. But when you create this culture of fear and hatred for people who express different views, freedom of speech pretty much means nothing if people don't feel comfortable expressing their beliefs. And of course, you could bring up extreme examples of people who, like, support Hitler, they're Nazis, and you could say that people who express extreme and hateful views deserve to be shunned by society. And that would make a lot of sense, but when you label literally everybody who says anything that you don't agree with as a Nazi, as a racist, as a terrible person, I'm sorry, believe it or not, 45% of the country is not racist. 45% of the country does not support Nazis and Adolf Hitler. They don't hate Jewish people. It's just, you're living in an alternate reality when you believe shit like that. Look, and to anyone watching right now, I don't care what your political beliefs are. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, or anything in between. I really don't care about what your ideology is. But when you have a specific ideology and your only argument against other viewpoints is that, oh, well, people who believe this stuff, they're just evil people, they're racist, they're bigots, it's because you really don't know why you believe in the stuff you believe in. You're brainwashed. You do not have a mind of your own. And I'm sorry, Weststyle, but you are one of those people. And he just goes on about how, you know, because I also mentioned in the video and related to video games, because we're kind of going into, like, real life politics shit. I'm sorry about that. But in the context of video games, I've talked about how banning people for saying offensive language is ridiculous, which I still stand by. I don't care what kind of language they're using, but he's like, oh, no one talks about why this shit is implemented and how it goes overboard. No one talks about how people who install TF2 for the first time will see the N-word 5 times within an hour, because no one cares despite it being a problem. It's a problem for who, though? Okay, like, if you're offended by that type of language, there's something called a mute button. And he responds, like, what an incredible point. No one has ever considered this or recommended it to others before. You don't want to look at the N-word, rape, be insulted, or for no reason. Just mute them after they say it. Every time. You know what? Just forgo voice and text chat altogether. Fucking duh. Okay? So we're in agreement. So why are you arguing with me? It's such an easy thing to mute somebody if you do not like the shit that they're saying. Like, I mean, because I can give you a great example of every time in fucking voice chat, I hear a baby crying, I hear people mic spamming, I hear people just being fucking annoying. I have to mute someone every single time I play an online match. They don't necessarily have to be racist, they don't necessarily have to say offensive shit, but the idea that banning people for saying offensive language makes voice chat a lot easier and a lot better to deal with, it's just nonsense. Because I have to mute someone every time anyway, and because you hear an offensive word, dude, you play a video game where you kill people. If you're really traumatized by offensive language, by hurtful words, you have no business playing M-rated video games. Now, that's not me saying that I condone the way that people behave in online games. I made a video earlier talking about how antisocial I am with online games because of how toxic it can be. But banning people for being toxic, that's hardly the solution to the problem. And really, there is no solution except for muting the person. Seriously, act like a fucking grown-up. Act like an adult. Handle your own business. If you don't like the shit that's being said, then do it yourself. Deal with it yourself. Mute the fucking person. And in the video I say that it's not okay to ban people for saying offensive shit but it's okay to ban people for cheating. And he's like, what? This is a non-point. People cheat in real life too. Yeah, and people go to jail for cheating in real life. People go to jail for cheating their taxes. People go to jail for doing the whole Ponzi scheme. Remember Bernie Madoff? So no one's arguing that people that cheat should not be punished. I don't think anyone's going to argue, unless you are a cheater in a game, that cheaters should not be punished. I don't understand how you're trying to equate. It's a false equivalency. It's a completely different thing. Okay, you don't go to jail for saying an offensive thing. You shouldn't, at least. In the United States of America, in a free country, you should not go to jail for saying an offensive thing. In China, yes. In Russia, yes. North Korea, you get put to death. But in the United States, the thing that makes us free is that we can say what we want without persecution. At least that's how it's supposed to be. But the fact that you're trying to draw some equivalency between saying offensive shit that hurts people's feelings and actually taking action in a game that objectively hurts the gameplay experience. If you're cheating, if you're hacking, if you have invincibility, or whatever, you're wall banging, you're wall hacking, whatever fucking trick that people do when they hack a game, that hurts the experience for everybody. There's no equivalency between the two, because you can deal with it. If someone says something offensive, you can mute them. If someone's cheating, the only person that can ban them is the developer or the publisher of the game. And then he also gets triggered about me using the word retard and me making fun of people that get offended with the word retard, even though they're not retarded, or if they're not slow mentally, whatever the politically correct term is. I don't even know, and I don't even care. But I made a point in the video saying that I find it funny and I find it ridiculous that people who do not actually have any mental deficiencies, they're the ones that are always offended, not people who actually do have mental deficiencies, people who are mentally challenged. No, it's never them. It's never those people that are actually offended by the term. It's the same thing with the term blind playthrough. You think actual blind people were offended? Dude, they can't go on Twitch. They can't see. How can they be offended by a term on a platform that they can have no use for? Really. But according to Weststyle, it's a completely normal thing for people to be offended on behalf of others because they have nothing better to do, I guess. So this man wrote an entire essay about how justified political correctness is and how wrong it is for me to say that toxic language should not be banned and that people should just deal with it themselves. They should use the mute button. And he's saying, oh, but people, they see the N-word on a game chat, and it's a terrible thing. It's so wrong. And then look at what he says at the end. And now for the twist. I say the N-word every single day, and I'm more edgy and toxic than y'all ever will be. I've never been banned before. If there isn't a response to any of this in your recap, then it'll just show how triggered you are by opposing opinions and would prefer to just sit in your echo chamber safe space. Yeah, so I'm not sure if this guy is a troll or if he's just mentally ill. Because to go on a whole rant about racism and the N-word and then to say at the end that he says the N-word every single day, the guy sounds like a fucking lunatic. I'm sorry. If you're watching this, Weststyle, please get some help because you need it bad. To go on a whole tirade about how bad the N-word is in game chat and how people who do such a thing should be banned, and then to admit that you do it. I can guarantee you, though, if your account is banned tomorrow, you're gonna cry like a little bitch. I know you will. So now let's take a look at my next video of December, where I compare PC and console fanboys to one another. And it's a weird thing, because I used to be the biggest console fanboy on the internet. Now I guess I'm considered to be a PC fanboy, except the difference is, of course, when I was a console fanboy a few years ago, I would go after people. I would just be like an awful person. But now as a PC fanboy, I'm just like, okay, yes, I love PC gaming, and I think PC gaming is definitely superior to consoles, but I list a whole bunch of objective reasons why PC gaming is superior. You don't have paid online. The games are a lot cheaper on PC. You have a lot more customization. There's so much more things you could do, so much more games you can play. You can install mods on PC. You cannot do such a thing on console. I can go on and on and on and on. So, yes, there's definitely a lot of toxic shit when we're talking about fanboys, but at least the PC fanboys actually have facts on their side, while consoles are objectively inferior products. I can't think of one advantage that console actually has over PC. I genuinely cannot come up with anything. The whole convenience factor, that went out the door when you can't just insert a disc anymore and the game just loads up like it did back in the PS2 days. You have to install shit anyway, so I'm not sure where this convenience factor comes from, how, oh, plug and play, that's the only thing you hear about with console fanboys, plug and play, plug and play. Plug and play has been dead for at least 10 years. I'm gonna read this comment from Dr. Daniel316. I've always considered myself to be neutral, as I'd usually play on anything back then, but I'd pretty much only play consoles back then, as we never really had a PC that could game. Heck, the game I'd play on PC the most back then, aside from Flash games, was Splinter Cell 1 from 2002. And that game was one that made me realize how good mouse and keyboard was, and when I tried playing it on original Xbox a few years later, I couldn't get used to the controls, and the Xbox version lacked quick saves, and instead only had checkpoints, which is bad for a stealth game. But later on, when I was like 11 or so, I had a short, and I do mean short, phase of me somewhat being a console fanboy and making stupid arguments about consoles being better because they came first, which is completely stupid and wrong. Thankfully, that died out fast. Honestly, YouTubers like Rags are what really made me want to try PC, as well as games like Half-Life and mods like GoldenEye Source. So eventually I got a shitty PC from Goodwill, and it ran on integrated graphics, but I didn't care. I'd still play it and kept getting games. PC made me come to love franchises like Max Payne and helped me play games like Left 4 Dead again, which I love. 1, not 2. Then in December last year, I got a new PC, and in June of this year, I upgraded my graphics card, and it's been smooth sailing since. I pretty much only play on PC now. Occasionally I'll play my old consoles like Wii, PS3, 360, N64, original Xbox, GameCube, and PS2, but most of the time I'll just play on PC, since that's where my friends play and all my games are on PC. And games look and run better, obviously, and it's super hard to go back to the 360 since so many games run poor on it. I must also say you've definitely helped me realize that switching to PC was the best decision I've ever made. Oh, well, thank you, I appreciate that. But yeah, I definitely have a lot of similar experience where I just grew up with consoles, right? So, I guess technically I did grow up with PC gaming. I think I've told this story before. The first video games I ever played were those little CD games, like Putt Putt Enters the Race. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that game before. It was like a little computer game for little kids. I also played Teletubbies, Little Bear, SpongeBob Employee of the Month. They were basically all point-and-click games made for toddlers. That was me growing up with PC gaming. I started playing video games. I think my mom told me I was like 1 year old or 2 years old when I started playing those games. So I guess you could say I grew up with PC, but no, most of my fond gaming experiences growing up were on my PlayStation 2, and later on the Wii and the PS3. So the console experience was something that I've grown accustomed to, and it was really hard to switch over to PC gaming, but well, I thought it was hard. It really wasn't as hard as I imagined that it would be. The keyboard and mouse was probably the biggest adjustment playing FPS games on it. Even though it's more precise, it's obviously better to play a game on keyboard and mouse. I had a hard time adjusting playing with a controller my entire fucking life. So that might have been the biggest adjustment about switching to PC, but everything else was just pretty smooth. I mean, you know, people talk about how hard it is to get into PC gaming and how you need to understand technology to a certain extent. I mean, dude, like, it's not really that difficult. You just need to know how to go on Google and install Steam, and then you just buy whatever games you want. It's not more difficult than that, trust me. But there is this misconception, there is this common thinking that PC gaming is just this really complicated thing that you have to be really smart about computers in order to get into. It couldn't be further from the truth. Like I said earlier, I'm a fucking retard, and if I'm able to do it, so can you. But it's great when people like Dr. Daniel actually say that my videos help them making decisions like that, because it's a great thing that you're actually using your platform on the internet to help people in a positive way. And I do agree with Mr. Fox that I have changed for the better. Maybe that's me just being, like, biased towards myself and not understanding, like, when I fuck up and when I do anything wrong. But, like, when I compare the videos I make today to the shit I made years ago, I think I've improved drastically. Not just the actual quality of the videos themselves, but on a personal level as well. I think I'm a lot less irritable, I'm less annoying than I was a few years ago. I'm a lot less hostile towards other people. I really just don't want to get involved in drama, but years ago I loved drama. I loved getting involved in that shit. Now I will never make a video response to anybody. I don't care what video they make on me. I don't care if they call me like a pedophile or some fucking crazy person. Like, I'm not even gonna give it the time of day if anyone makes a video on me. I just don't care anymore. I don't care about drama. I don't care about getting in with other YouTubers. I just want to do my own thing and have fun doing it. So I think I've definitely improved a lot as a YouTuber over the years, and I'm sure many of you watching right now can agree with that, because if you didn't, then you wouldn't have tuned into this shit in the first place. You would have unsubscribed to me a long time ago and just move on with your life. But the fact that this year has probably been one of the best years I've ever had on YouTube as far as subscriber count, as far as actual growth and views and everything, it definitely means that I am improving and people are starting to notice that, which makes me feel really good. So we got 2 more videos for the month of December. We got this video where I talk about CD Projekt Red and the shit that they've been doing. I love that thumbnail with the Chinese flag and the cyberpunk character. And then in the description I say CD Projekt Red has finally shown their true colors. And the color, of course, is red for communism because the shit that they've been doing, kowtowing to the Chinese Communist Party, I had to make a video about it. Because, yeah, the whole cyberpunk thing, I was going to talk about it. But I figured, like, it was a topic that was done to death. Like, every single YouTuber was making a video about it, so I'm like, okay, I don't really have anything new to say, because everyone else has already made a video about it. But when I saw the news about CD Projekt Red censoring a game from being released on GOG, because it made fun of the Chinese government, I knew I had to make a video about that. So I did. And let's see what you guys think. Arioka says, it's disgraceful how many companies all over the world are bowing down to the CCP, who enslaves, have concentration camps, and murders innocent people in China. The CCP has so many companies in their pockets that are cowardly staying quiet about the human rights abuse and crimes constantly committed in China, as was the case with the NBA that punished the Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Money for supporting Hong Kong anti-government protesters. I think it's time for people to wake up and realize that money shouldn't be the main priority that's able to buy everything and everyone. Companies and decent people need to stop supporting anything that is financially backed by the CCP. They are the equivalent of modern-day Nazi Germany. And to build off the video that I talked about earlier when I was ranting on political correctness, the thing I find the most absurd about PC culture is that you have all these so-called woke companies, like Nike. They have Colin Kaepernick all over their advertisements. You have the entire National Basketball Association, like Arioka mentioned in the comments, that kowtows to China, but then also talks about how police brutality in the United States is a terrible thing and we need to do something about it. They all take a knee before the game starts, but when it actually comes to a country that is objectively worse than the United States, when we're talking about human rights abuses, they're radio silent. And you also have these woke activists praising Nike for standing up for the right thing and standing up for human rights. Meanwhile, Nike sneakers are manufactured in Chinese sweatshops where working conditions are terrible, and guess what? You have child labor over there. And like I said in that video, the thing that frustrates me the most about PC culture, about wokeness in the United States, is not the actual wokeness itself, which is, can be a little bit irritating, especially when that shit comes into video games, but it's the pure hypocrisy about it. In the case of Activision, the way they dealt with Blitzchung, a player in Hearthstone who got banned, he got punished for speaking out against the police brutality in Hong Kong, but then just a few months later, Activision's blastering Black Lives Matter all over their video games, all over Call of Duty and every game that they have, about, we speak up against police brutality, we stand for George Floyd, and we stand for the people who've been abused in the United States. But again, when it comes to China, they have nothing to say. And in China, things are a lot worse. Like, you can't even compare the shit that happens in the U.S. to China. Now, I'm not trying to say that, that means that the shit that goes on in the U.S. you don't even need to talk about and you should ignore it because China's so much worse. I'm not trying to say that at all. What I'm saying is it's very hypocritical when you have these Western companies talk about all the shit that's wrong with the U.S., but they have nothing to say about China, a country, like Arioka pointed out, has concentration camps, suppresses any and all speech that goes against the will of the CCP. You really can't compare the two countries at all. But hey, at least if you're going to speak out against stuff that happens in the US, you have to go even harder on China. But these companies never do because they have business interests over there. The United States government is not going to ban Activision from doing business in the US for speaking out against police brutality. But the Chinese government will ban Activision from doing business in China if they speak out against what's going on in Hong Kong or anything else going on in China. And out of everything that we have in the gaming industry, all the bullshit, this is just blatant greed from these corporations. I mean, there's no way to spin it. CD Projekt Red censored that game from GOG because of greed, because they want more money coming in from China. CD Projekt Red released a broken, buggy, unfinished mess out of greed so they can maximize profits around the holiday season. Now, as far as the state of Cyberpunk goes, I have a couple of interesting comments from you guys. First, we got Magnamaster. I've been saying that this hype will hurt Cyberpunk and its fans since I first heard about the game years ago. People dismissed it, but had they really thought about it, it was obvious. The game clearly wasn't ready, and people harassed CD Projekt Red over the delay so much that they wouldn't dare delay it again. The delays already in place were clearly a sign that executives cared more about the release of the game being soon than ensuring that they have actual stable release date. I can kind of see where they might have been fucked over as well in the situation, but that doesn't excuse it. I really can't throw them any bone over the bending the knee to China shit, though. That is beyond inexcusable. They better walk back on that quick. Well, they're not going to walk back on it. They're not. Because the money from China is just so fucking good. It's too good to pass up on. So they're not going to walk back on it. And as far as the state of the game, I really can't defend them that much, really. I have no sympathy for CD Projekt Red. I have sympathy for the developers, the people who actually worked hard on the game. But as far as, like, the actual management of CD Projekt Red, I have no sympathy for them because, oh, they couldn't do another delay because the people would have been really angry, and if they delayed it again, it would have been a lot. Like, well, okay, so the solution was to not announce a release date to begin with. I mean, that's the big problem, is that you keep building this hype, and then you announce a release date a year before it comes out, which sounds reasonable. Oh, we have a year, based on how much progress we've made so far, well, we can say that this game will come out in April of 2020. That's what they said in June 2019 at E3. But it turned out that they need a lot more time than that, so they delayed it again until October. Then they realized October wasn't going to cut it, so they were going to delay it to November. Then they realized November, they were going to need more time, so they delayed it again to December. The problem is scheduling. It's time management. Even with crunch, even with everything, they still couldn't deliver a final, finished product, despite 3 delays. So I think the problem is, it has something to do with management, that they did not make any realistic expectations about the state of the game, and they didn't give the developers really enough time to finish it. And that sounds kind of absurd because, oh, they've been working on it for 8 years, oh, they kept delaying the game so much. But see for yourself the state of the game right now. And never mind the console version, the PC version also is loaded with bugs. It's really inexcusable. But I think the thing that we don't really talk about in this conversation is the average consumer and their spending habits. They pre-order these games without question, so these publishers already have their fucking money, and at that point it doesn't matter if the game is broken at launch because they already sold millions of copies before the game was even seen by the public. And you guys might remember months ago I made a video talking about why you should never pre-order games, and I got a few comments from people saying, yeah, I agree with your video. I think for most publishers, you shouldn't pre-order games, but there are a few publishers like CD Projekt Red that I trust so much that I'll pre-order the game no matter what. And here we are, talking about Cyberpunk and the broken mess it was at launch. I actually think it was you, Magnamaster, who said that you were pre-ordering Cyberpunk because you trust CD Projekt Red. Well, I wonder how you feel about that now. And then $5 Combo says, I don't think we should excuse what they did with Cyberpunk on last gen, but to keep it $1.50, Cyberpunk is the start of what's to come with new titles. Games already ran like dog shit to begin with on consoles. It reminds me of COD Black Ops 3 on PS3 and 360. Hell, if you don't have a 20 or 30 series card for Cyberpunk, you're basically fucked. It would have sucked for last gen users, but I think they should not have released it on last gen. And that's another thing I've been saying, that they really have no business releasing this game on the PS4 or Xbox One, and I think that has to do with a lot of the troubles they've had with the game, is trying to have that vision seen on really old hardware that really couldn't keep up with what they want to do with the game. And that also hurt the PC version as well. And I think if they really want to hit a home run with Halo Infinite, Microsoft needs to cancel the Xbox One version of the game. They just have to. As much as it sucks for people who, let's say, just bought a last-gen console like 2 or 3 years ago, it's time to move on. We have to move on from the PS4 and Xbox One. It's time. It's past time. These were weak machines back in 2013, and in 2020, 2021, they're just done. They can't do anything else. It's time to put them to rest. We were just talking about Cyberpunk 2077, whether or not it should have gotten more delays, and the entire development surrounding that game. I actually made a whole video talking about the issue of delays in the video game industry, and it was a pretty comprehensive conversation. I know the video was a little bit too long. It was 16 and a half minutes. Let me know in the comments or the chat, or however you're watching this right now, if you like my longer videos, or if you want me to like just really try to keep it under 10 minutes. I really don't think like coming into a video, oh, it has to be this amount of length. I just talk however much I need to, and I try to, I don't try to like reiterate the same stuff over and over and over and over and over again to make it redundant. Like, okay, like making a 16-minute video that should have been 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Like, I really try to make every minute feel worth it. And maybe it doesn't help that I refuse to use a script because I just feel so robotic when I speak when I'm just reading lines from a script. I'll write like a few notes on Notepad and jot a few things down just so I remember everything I need to say and it's kind of organized and cohesive. But generally speaking, I just hit the record button and talk whatever's on my mind. And that's pretty much what I did in this video. But I thought it was a really interesting conversation. I thought the concept around the video was pretty cool as well. I'm pretty much breaking down one of the most famous quotes in video game history, that a delayed game is eventually good. And just this common notion that if a game just gets more time and attention, that it will inherently be a better game. Sometimes that's not necessarily the case. I, of course, gave the extreme example of Duke Nukem Forever, a game that just conceptually was bad, and it didn't matter how much time they spent on it, it just was not going to work out. So delays are not like the end-all, be-all in making a good quality product, but it could definitely help, especially in the case of Cyberpunk, where they had something. They really had something there, but they didn't give it enough time. They didn't give it the time and attention that it deserved, and it suffered as a result. Stephen Becker says, I think the big difference here is that in 1996, which was when Shigeru Miyamoto's quote was originally said, there were no patches, so developers had no other choice but to get it right on the first try. Unfortunately, not the case today. And I agree with the part where you say, unfortunately, that's not the case today, because I think these developers and these publishers have they have way too much leeway to not release a game ready to go at launch because they have the day one patch, they have all these patches and things that they could do. But back then, in the N64 days, even the PS2 days, and part of the 7th generation as well, they couldn't just overhaul an entire game with a day one patch and fix all the bugs because that infrastructure was just not there. It was not there. So they really had to make sure they got it right, because if they didn't, if the game launched broken back in the day, it stayed broken for good. You could not just fix it later. I guess you could release like a definitive edition or a greatest hits edition on the PS2, but for the most part, if the game came out in a bad state, it stayed that way forever. And honestly, I think that's a good thing because it put more pressure on the developers to make sure they released a finished product compared to now where they can release a game broken and just fix it later. This might sound like a stupid thing to say, but I hate patches. I hate that they're able to do that. And you can say it's great because they can release patches, they can fix the game, and they weren't able to do that before, but the counter argument to that is that they shouldn't have released the game broken to begin with. And I can guarantee you a big reason why we've had a lot of broken games, especially this generation, compared to every other generation in history. The 8th gen has probably been the buggiest generation in history, and I'm pretty sure that's because of the day one patch. That's because of the live service model that we've been seeing in recent years. It allows them to get away with it. Yeah, honestly, I think this past generation has been the worst time in history to be a gamer. It's been very underwhelming. Yes, of course, there have been amazing games, but there have been far more amazing games in the 7th gen and 6th gen. And it just feels like something's missing. The modern gaming experience, it just doesn't feel the same. And I think a big part of that is that games are less polished and finished than they were years ago. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, there were plenty of problems in the 7th generation, but I think it's much worse now than it was back then. Definitely. But that wraps up this month's recap, December 2020. I think it's safe to say this year has been shitty for pretty much everybody, so we can't wait to put 2020 behind us and then look forward to 2021. But let's be real. The only difference is the 0 at the end of 2020 becomes a 1. Is it really going to be a much better year? Honestly, who knows, but all we can do is hope for the better. Again, I want to thank you all for the support you've given me over the past month and the entire year 2020. It's been a struggle, but honestly, YouTube's been one of the few things that has been keeping me going. And this little recap series is one way for me to show that I really appreciate each and every one of you that comment on my videos, that watch my videos. You guys are awesome. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I hope you all have a very happy New Year. Until next year, take care, everyone.